Well, hi everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Monday night. It's December 17th, 2018. Welcome to tonight's version of the Joe and Joe Show. Joe will be here in a moment. He's just taking care of a few things, and I figured this would be a good time to just kind of jump on and say hi, and hope everybody had a great weekend. It was really just an absolutely miserable weekend. I don't know about you, but this time of year, when you got the sun angle as low as it is, and you have a day where at best the rain tapers off to some light rain or drizzle at times, like it did out over parts of Long Island for a little while yesterday. It just looked like it was dark, almost the middle of the night, all day long, and it wasn't the kind of day, and certainly wasn't the kind of weekend where you wanted to do things, all right, even indoors. So I just basically took it easy and moved from one couch to another. All right, let me just say before Joe gets here just a couple of things. First off, just want to let you know that I figured this would be a good opportunity to bring up my free weather app, which is on Google Play, and it's up for Android devices. I've been posting about this. You know, Facebook doesn't make it easy anymore in terms of getting information out. So even though if I post something once a day about this, not everybody sees it. So if you get something multiple times, that's just the luck of the draw. But many of you may not know. If you have an Android device, I've just put up the link to my free weather app on Google Play. So go ahead and download it. It'll just make things easier. And if you missed the Joe and Joe Show, you can watch it there. There will be an iPhone version of this coming out shortly. I've been talking about this as well, just trying to get the final approvals from Apple. We're making a few technical changes. So if those pass through, the app will be updated both on the Google Play side and on the Apple side. And there'll be some interesting additions that I think you'll enjoy. And again, those are free. If you are into wanting more weather, more of the time, you can take a look at my new subscription platform that I've set up on Patreon. It's just $2 a month, and you get live streams just for Patreon members, posts just for Patreon members, and you can message me directly on that platform, and I will respond. I'm no longer going to be responding to messages on Facebook, mainly because most people are fine, but there are a lot of people who seem to think that this is sort of like an entitlement to them. And they'll message me and they'll ask me to do some work for them with regards to a forecast or some question. And, I don't even get so much as a thank you for doing it. So it's going on the Patreon platform. If you want something from the standpoint of weather info, it's fine. But it's going to be for Patreon members who are going to get the full package. So I'm putting it out there. If you want it, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. There's also the app, which is going to be free. So Joe should be here in a moment. Let's take a look at what's going on tonight on the satellite loop, because we do have this storm from over the weekend, and it's still just kind of spinning away south of Nova Scotia, where they had mostly rain, but through New Brunswick and on back into eastern Maine, it's been mostly snow. You may have heard that door slam. That was just no ordinary door slam.
I didn't mean to slam it, I'm sorry.
No, I'm using the word slam not to imply that you slammed it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
But Mr. Rayo is here.
Yes.
Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, I got it. It was the weekend before Christmas.
Yes.
I spend my day on Saturday with my daughter. It's a tradition that my daughter and I go shopping about a week before Christmas, and we did that on Saturday.
Oh, nice, nice.
Nice, and
Who paid?
Of course,
Never mind. Next. All right. So I just started, Joe. Just kind of getting into the satellite here. This low in Nova Scotia is going to probably take another 36 hours to get out of the way. So it's going to be windy. We've got a cold front coming through tonight, and that's got the cold air behind it. So it's just taking a little while to work through. But you go back through the plains and the Great Lakes, it's clear, and that air is not that cold back there. So we're going to see our temperatures rebound starting on Wednesday.
Yeah, well, it's a temporal thing. We will, because of the tighter pressure gradient tomorrow, plus the colder air that's moving in, we will be. That's right. Move that camera. We are going to see a decidedly colder or blustery kind of day tomorrow. But as you just mentioned, Joe, it doesn't last very long. Wednesday and Thursday, actually a couple of really nice days. Lots of sunshine, mid to even upper 40s by Thursday. And then we'll have, well, a rather wet day, it looks like, on Friday.
Well, we could bring up, I got WPC's rainfall forecast here for the rest of this, for the next 7 days. So that takes us through the end of the week. And it's pretty bullish with rainfall amounts up and down the East Coast of 1 to 2 inches going back into the Ohio Valley. This is it looks like a pretty loaded system that's running up the Appalachians.
And I asked, we were discussing when I got in today after looking at some of these maps, whether or not maybe even we might have to throw in a thunderstorm because there possibly could be some convection. I guess that's going to be dependent upon who ends up getting into the warm wedge, so to speak, of air, because we have a cold front coming in, a warm front trying to come up from the south, and there may be places down along the Jersey Shore on Friday that could even see temperatures top 60 degrees, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, with this wrapped up low. The only thing that might complicate it, Joe, is I did happen to notice, at least on the GFS, there's like a tight little low that forms as the warm front kind of lifts up. Right. I wonder whether, it could get pretty windy here later Thursday night into Friday morning, and whether that winds up maybe delaying or perhaps, in terms of the warm air, maybe it gets trapped someplace. I don't know. We always run into that battle with these things. It would seem to be like we should be able to see this thing fly all the way up as far as the warm front is concerned. But you never know.
Well,
sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't.
It does look like a solid inch to maybe 2 inches, and in fact, on my extended forecast, with the knowledge that Christmas is coming, and the knowledge that one toy that is very popular among many of the youngsters out there is your Super Soaker, and this looks like on Friday, without the Super Soaker, nature's going to provide the super soaking when we have this tandem of weather fronts, this storm as you just alluded to. So we're looking for a rather wet day coming our way on Friday. And then after that, everybody will be looking ahead to
Jingle Bells.
Yeah, to the Christmas holidays and possibly seeing whether or not we can get a few wet snowflakes.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not. The European today kind of left the crack on the door open. It's been doing this since Saturday, where it's been trying to bring this, kind of a weak low through the Ohio Valley. Redevelops just off the New Jersey coast. It just keeps on moving. It would be a coating to a couple of inches maybe, or a period of snow. Who knows? But only the European is doing it.
Right.
And it's holding on to that. The other models have a much weaker looking, flatter looking upper air, which would basically suggest that it would be just simply cold and dry. Let me just bring up a couple of things, Joe. I got it in the corner here, and I brought the snow cover map across North America, which about 10 days ago peaked at coverage, snow coverage in North America of 42%, which was, way up there at the top of the charts. It might even be a record or close to a record. This was because of course, you had the big storm in the southeast and up into the southern parts of the mid-Atlantic states. The snow cover since then has dropped from 42% coverage on North America to about 26% of coverage. And this is because of the warmish pattern that is sort of developed across the U.S. This is what happens when that East Pacific oscillation goes positive. It floods Pacific air into the U.S. But, one of the things that I noticed here, I brought up also last year. So this is right now, but this is from a year ago. And if you look, there was a little bit more snow cover at this time of year. But in fact, we had solid snow coverage all the way down through southern New Jersey and all of Pennsylvania, Long Island, southern New England, because remember, we had that really cold December. But in terms of coverage across North America, it's not that much different than what we have now.
Right.
And from here to the end of the month, when we got to our New Year's, I brought in New Year's Eve. This is where we saw the snow cover really kind of expand down to about 35 degrees north, pretty much from, well, maybe a little bit further north than that, but from northern Virginia, West Virginia, but You can almost draw a line east-west across the U.S., maybe at around 38 north, all the way across the country. So at least last year, we did see a significant expansion of snow in the last 10 days of the month.
But don't forget that in those final 10 days of the month, we turned incredibly cold.
Yes, it was bitter. And it doesn't appear like we're going to be doing that this time around. But I'm just saying that there's a lot of, and predictably right on time, by the way, all weekend long, the winter is over tweets everywhere. All the snow weenies on all the enthusiast groups out there. Winter is over. Winter is over. Winter is over.
Hasn't even begun yet. Well, astronomically, it hasn't begun.
Look, you're only going to know this in hindsight. I'm not alone. I've said this 100 times, and I still keep getting asked the question. Don't ask me what the weather's going to be like in January, February, or March. I have no clue. Okay, I really don't. I don't think Joe has a clue. Well, you might have a little bit of a clue, but I don't know what the pattern's going to be like, and nobody does. You can guess all you want with all these technical indicators and, all the rumors that you hear because you're sitting around, basically on bar stools in places where people wind up gossiping about weather. No one knows where this is all going. We're due for a subpar snow year. One of these winters, we're going to have a subpar winter when it comes to snow.
I think I mentioned last week.
When? I don't know.
In Central Park, 6 consecutive above normal snow seasons that we've had.
And Long Island at the same thing.
And so, yeah, you're right.
6 out of the last 7 and 9 out of the last 10. That has never happened. 9 out of 10 above normal winters, except for the winter of 11 and 12. A 9 out of 10 streak on records, on the records that are there. It's hard to say whether it has happened before records were taken because nobody was around to write the stuff, to measure it and write it down. But my point is that at least from the standpoint of the records that are on paper, we've never seen a snow streak like this. There's going to be a subpar winter at some point. I don't know that it's going to be this winter, though. Who knows?
Well, I know Dr. Judah Cohen had just talked about or just published a report about the potential for stratospheric warming.
Big. You want to see it?
Yeah.
Let's take a look. I've been showing this the last couple of days, but let's take a look at this because this is underway from the standpoint of how the models are portraying all this. I'm going to let me just bring up. Let's see if it's available on Les GFS de Parallèle, and it's not. So we have to go on the regular one. Okay, but you can actually watch this happen. I'm going to roll it back to the beginning.
I love that we'll be able to do that.
I know it's one low and one.
We've come a long way from coloring the maps with bananas.
Exactly. But it's one low and one high, which is all we have in the stratosphere. We're way up. Things are fairly simple up there. The big low is the polar vortex, and the stratosphere works in reverse. So if you've got a strong polar vortex up in the atmosphere, it doesn't translate down to the surface in the same fashion. So if you're a cold weather snow lover for the East, you want a weak polar vortex in the stratosphere. Okay. So where you need to pay attention on this is before I start moving it. Look off the coast of Africa, which is, if you go to the right, folks, where it says 50, because it's when you get these hemispheric looks, it can be confusing. But where you see the numbers between 52 and 60, minus 52 and minus 60, just to the left of there, that is where I'm talking about, off the African coast near Morocco. You see this brownish spot. Now follow that spot along. That is warm air from Africa and Morocco. That's going to cross over Europe into Siberia and then really magnify as it moves into the Arctic regions over the next couple of weeks. And this is going to displace the polar vortex, and it weakens it. The polar vortex, you notice over time, Joe, how you get how strong the red gets. That is a big stratospheric warming event. At the same time, the blue, which represents the polar vortex, weakens. It gets that lighter and lighter blues. Not only weakens, but it stretches and it looks like it even wants to try to split. This is, as according to Dr. Judah Cohen and his tweets that he's been tweeting about this for the last week or so, or even longer, that this points to down the road, maybe once we get through the first week or so of January, that we will be flipping into a cold, snowy pattern in the eastern half of the United States.
Now, didn't we have a split like this last year toward like the latter part
Mid-February.
Mid-February, yeah.
We gave it about a 10-day to 2-week lag,
Right.
and then of course we had March, the four nor'easters of the apocalypse.
Right. Right.
And it was a colder than normal March.
And we were talking about that, and during mid and late February, and people were still throwing in the towel on winter. And as we saw, winter made a dramatic comeback after that.
I agreed. Now, Jason Schaefer says, let's talk about Christmas Eve, so let's talk about Christmas Eve.
Okay.
The European is the only model that is doing anything, as we mentioned earlier, so you know what? Let's go to that.
Let me point out, the European, we were talking about this about a couple of weeks ago, that there's a 600-hour European.
Yes.
And somebody posted like a major nor'easter.
About a month ago.
About a month ago on Christmas morning. And I said, yeah, let's see if that works out or whatever. But I do have to hand it to the European. They have continued to hold on to
something.
The thought of something happening Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And they are apparently the only model of choice right now, if you're a snow lover, to do this. All the other models show a lot flatter, a lot weaker scenario.
Right.
But we're still a week out, and a lot of things can still happen in a week.
Well, here's let's get there. So we got this big system this is the one for the weekend. This we just went through.
Friday.
And well, this was this past weekend.
Oh, this past weekend. Okay.
But just to set up the next one, not that different from what's happening, with one major difference in that the northern part of the jet stream and the southern part never phased. They stayed separate.
Right.
And they kind of phased. They're phasing now to make the storm what it is near Nova Scotia, and impacting Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and eastern Maine. Nova Scotia getting mostly rain, but New Brunswick and Maine getting snow. Now we're getting another strong system in the southern stream, another system in the northern stream. These phase, and that is the big difference between this and what we just had. Right. So this is going to take a low up the Appalachians. We're going to get into some big wind and rain here Thursday night into Friday night. And then notice, Joe, here's Sunday. So now we've got some energy that comes into the northwest. You got a trough here in the plains. You got a lot of energy kind of running around here.
Right.
And that system, the European keeps it intact. So that on Monday morning, we've got this shortwave trough moving through Pennsylvania. And then, of course, it's long gone by Christmas Day. I'm going to bring the surface up just to take a look at that.
It's more like an open wave ripple, if you will. And it just ripples along, and maybe, just maybe, if it does come out the way the European says, we could get even a period of light snow on Christmas Eve, and maybe nothing devastating.
And nothing that gets in anybody's way, which I think is important. We,
right.
we don't want travel headaches on Christmas Eve. Here's our storm, though, for the end of the week. So Thursday, deteriorating weather conditions. Looks like we'll probably have southerly gales here later Thursday night and a Friday morning. See, there's a deep low that runs up the Appalachians.
Right.
We see improving weather conditions, but it's going to be windy on Saturday on the backside. There's your low on Sunday, sitting in west of St. Louis on the European. By Monday, it doesn't print an L, but it's somewhere in central Pennsylvania.
Right.
You got a little bit of a high that's up in southeastern Canada, but this is a weak system. It's not a big. It should not be a big snow producer.
Even on the system.
And then it's long gone by Christmas Day.
Even on the model, the one model that is giving hope to all of you traditionalists for maybe a touch of snow, as Joe just mentioned, it does not look like anything really to write home about, but maybe just enough to maybe whiten the ground or give a Christmassy type look on the day before Christmas. But as you just pointed out, Joe, that thing skedaddles off the coast by later Monday and is long gone by Christmas morning.
Let's. I thought we'd go back now. Let's take a look at Friday, because Thursday night and Friday, because that really does look like a big wind and rain event. And I got the wind profile here, Joe, with that low coming up the Appalachians. This is what I was talking about for Friday morning. There's a little low that forms. The main low is up in northeastern Georgia, but there's like a little bit of a wave there off the North Carolina coast and
Right.
into southern New Jersey, the gradient could get briefly pretty tight
Right.
over Long Island.
And if the low does form, and this is something, if you're a snow lover, you would love to see, in a situation that looks like a warm air advection pattern, you suddenly get the development of a mid-Atlantic coastal system to cut off the warm air advection, keep you cold, and keep it snowing. But if
The problem is there's no cold air anywhere.
Right, but the other problem is if you want warmer air, we're talking about temperatures in the 50s, maybe rising into the 60s, you get something like that, that immediately cuts off chances for that to happen.
Well, and that's my concern for Friday.
Right.
Then, you got the low that runs up the Appalachians and eventually strengthens into a major storm as it heads up the St. Lawrence Valley. And you can see the winds that set up for Saturday, also gales along the, gales along the coast, probably every bit of 20 to 30, gusting to 40 or 40 plus. And the rainfall on the GFS at least. Oh, and here's an interesting statistic, by the way. So here we have another couple of inches to push the annual rainfall amounts, which right now I think are for just about all of the area observing points are running in the top 10 wettest years.
Right.
I had someone on my YouTube channel point out a Mr. John Smith. I thought
John Smith.
I guess he wanted to remain anonymous with this information. It's actually I'm teasing, but it was actually a very interesting stat, and this is something that I want to address with regards to all these stats. And we touched upon it on Friday with
Right.
the old Christmas, the 3-inch December indicator,
Right.
for example.
Right.
So anyway, he went back just for New York City now. He went back and found that there were 8 years where the rainfall amounts in New York City were 60 inches or higher.
Okay.
In each of those years, the winters snow-wise were all below average.
Okay.
All of them, all 8. Now, this would be the 9th time.
Okay.
So, now, the thing is, the majority of those 8 years happened between 1970 and 2000.
Okay.
Okay? So, that was a period where 25 of the 30 winters were below average.
Okay.
So, my point is that it seems like you could make the argument that, well, we're having more than 60 inches, therefore the winter's going to be below average. But it's a really small subset of only 8 years.
Only 8 years.
Plus, if you want to look at the fact that if you look at those 30 years and say that we were in some kind of down cycle as far as snow, then, yeah, they are going to be below average.
Okay.
What else would they be?
Right.
So, and he also went back and looked to see which ones were El Nino years and which ones weren't. Some of them were La Nina years, some of them were east base, west base, all the different angles. Point is, you got to be really careful when you try to make these correlations. Here's another correlation everybody's been making. We had snow in November, therefore we'll see very little snow in December. And that's because in the years that we've had, apparently somebody went back and looked at the years and said, well, in the years that we've had snow in November, usually December winds up being a dud.
Right.
Okay. Well, here's the problem with that. 9 out of 10 Novembers, you don't get any snow. So you're already 90% in the hole anyway.
Right.
So the other thing is, I think if you go back and look and count, I would bet you that the vast majority of Decembers have below average snowfall, if only because of the fact that the number in December is relatively high because we've had some big snowstorms in December along the way.
Right.
So everything's kind of tilted to one side. So I don't think you can reliably say that just because you had a snowfall in November of size, therefore December winds up being a dud. December most of the time is a dud. It's not a big snow month here.
Right.
Right?
And I'll agree with you on the other point that we're due for a below normal. We've 6 in a row now above normal. 9 out of the last 10 have been above normal. So we're due for maybe a clinker if you're a snow lover.
It's just you have to be careful. You have to be careful trying to make correlations, because over the years, I've discovered that as soon as you think you have made a correlation and that you think it's going to work, it stops working.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It stops working.
Well,
it's nature's way of keeping you honest.
As I said, the 3-inch rule, it's not really a rule, it was
an observation.
It's an observation. It was working really fine. The last 6 years, 3 of those 6 years that we have had above normal snowfall at Central Park, we've had snow amounts of like a trace or an inch or an inch and a half. And you say to yourself, well, it's going to be a below normal. And it hasn't been. 6 years ago, that correlation was perfect. It was like 100%. But now, with those 3 years, it's down to 81%. Still a fairly strong correlation if you want to make it for, less than 3 inches. It'll be a below normal winter. But it hasn't worked the last 3 times it has come up. So who's to say now if it comes up again this year, we end up at Central Park below 3 inches for December. Who's to say that it's going to work? 81% of the time it has, but the last 6 years, 3 times it's happened. It hasn't worked. So we'll see.
Nothing works. Everybody's trying to find that. Everybody's trying to find that silver bullet, that magic bullet that is going to give you all the answers between now and eternity as to what's going to happen.
Do you remember, it was either in the 70s or the 80s, and I forgot the name of the model, but there was a model that everybody was suddenly saying, they called it the magic chart for snow.
Yes, I remember the magic chart, yes.
Yeah. And that was supposedly the one that everybody, I said, oh, who cares what the NGM says?
Well,
what does
the magic chart.
What does the magic chart say?
Well, then the magic chart. Then there's the buff kit. That was another one
Right.
that I think it's still around somewhere.
Right.
There's this sort of elusive
Windex.
The Windex, yeah. There's this endless search for the Holy Grail when it comes to forecasting.
Right.
And by the way, Sunday, the NAM, by the way, did not do a good job with Sunday at all, because Saturday on the day run, when it came out with giving almost an inch of liquid, and the temperatures in the atmosphere were all below critical, and you started thinking, well, is there going to be some heavy wet snow in some inland spots in elevated areas, and it just never translated on Sunday.
I drew up a map on Saturday evening based upon what the NAM and some of the other models saying, and I'm saying, my goodness, if this comes out, we'll get like a narrow zone across parts of Hudson Valley of 2 to 4 inches of snow. What happened? There was nothing.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen at all.
And even yesterday afternoon, when the mid-cycle run came out, and this was easy because I watched it come out, and all of a sudden it did the same thing after backing off, and it had all this snow for northern New Jersey into the Hudson Valley for about 3 or 4 hours late Sunday afternoon and evening. And I said, well, you know what? I was doing a live stream for my Patreon members, and I said, well, we're going to know in about 20 minutes whether this is going to be right, because according to the NAM, it should be snowing just about everywhere in North Jersey. And as it turned out, there was a narrow sliver yesterday evening where it mixed with and changed over to some wet snow in some places, down to about New York City and Brooklyn. Some car tops were whitened up, and that was it.
They even had that on Eyewitness News. I think they showed some big wet flakes coming down in Manhattan. It wasn't happening where I was, and I don't know.
No, it didn't happen where I was.
So
And the rainfall this week. Joe. Was this not the most miserable weekend we've had in a long time? Especially Sunday. Did it not feel like it was sunset the whole day? It was so cloudy,
absolutely, and
so dark.
Right. Well, at least Saturday turned out to be a decent day, and temperature-wise, I was able to get some lights up that burned out on my roof. But I said, we better do this now, because tomorrow I ain't going outside in what we're expecting, and I'm glad I did it on Saturday instead of Sunday.
So just a quick recap. Christmas Eve is this weekend. The Europeans got this, small window where it says maybe that there might be a little bit of snow. Christmas Day, either way, no matter which model you look at, it's probably going to be a dry, seasonably cold day. No issues.
I've already seen people making reference to New Year's Day and a potential big storm,
because they all looked at the parallel GFS this evening.
Yes,
I saw it too. By the way, it's 14 days away, right?
Right.
Yeah, 14 days away. So we're not bothering with it now. All right.
You know, one thing I will say, in all the years, there's one thing that I've been waiting for or waiting to see.
Is the 384-hour verifying?
No. New Year's Eve in Times Square with a blizzard, and just seeing how many people would show up in blizzard conditions.
When was the last time there was a big...
I
remember an 8-inch snowstorm on New Year's Eve.
Well, I remember in 2000, on December 30th, it was a Saturday.
Right.
We had like 8 or 10 or 12 inches of snow. And I remember as a much younger, 1970, 71, we were making the transition, and there was a potential big storm coming. In fact, there was. Watched Times Square, they had a couple of snowflakes. Went to bed, woke up the next morning, 6 or 8 inches of snow outside. I was living in Throggs Neck then.
Right.
But it never seems to have happened
right
at the ball drop time. And we've had cold. Last year was what, the second coldest on record?
I believe so. Yes, it was.
But I'd like to see how many people would show up at Times Square with like blizzard conditions or heavy snow conditions. It has never happened. That has been the one thing.
Yeah, you would think that, it's funny. There are a number of storms that have happened the day after or 2 days after Christmas.
Right.
There's been a number of storms kind of surrounding either side of New Year's. But for Christmas Day and New Year's Day, it's almost as if there's, someone's being merciful. To make it easy for people to get around.
Absolutely.
So I kind of get that.
So maybe all of you who are looking at the parallel GFS will get your wish this year. Because it hasn't happened in my life.
Well, maybe the parallel, forgetting the specifics with the storm, maybe the parallel GFS is pointing to the fact that perhaps the pattern, as we get toward New Year's, if it times out with this whole stratospheric warming stuff that's going on, well, maybe there's your pattern change going into the first part of January. By the way, I have seen a number of people that I kind of pay attention to allude to that possibility. They seem to be on that page, that we are going to have, this flip, and that we're going to go into a deep winter pattern for about 6 weeks or so.
Right.
Which kind of makes sense.
Didn't I say I pulled a date out of about a month ago? I said, January 6th or 7th? I said, that'd be the big storm.
You have a knack for doing that.
Right.
I don't know why, but you do have this.
I don't know why either.
You have this knack. You did this last year. Okay, you time your days off for disasters to happen when I have to handle them by myself. I get back at you by taking days off when severe weather breaks out in times of year where it's not supposed to break out.
Well, we'll see what happens. January 6th or 7th, we'll see if there's any kind of major calamity.
All right. Do you got anything going on tomorrow you want to tell the folks about?
No. I'm coming in to work, and hopefully I'll drive in under bright blue sunny skies. I'll quickly run out of the car and into here, because I know it's going to be a windy, blustery kind of day, but I just want tranquility for the next few days. We'll put up with the wet weather on Friday, and I've got a treat for you on Friday. Everybody here on Friday.
All right, don't tell me.
All right.
I want to be shocked.
All right.
I would like to be shocked. All right.
Okay.
Top of the hour, Joe Rayo is going to be on FiOS 1 News, Hudson Valley, Lower
Hudson Valley.
Yes.
And you will be, there's no lower or higher in Long Island or
it's all
New
pretty
Jersey.
even.
All right. So, but
we're more of an east-west type of situation.
Mr. Cioffi on FiOS 1 News, Long Island.
And FiOS 1 News, New Jersey. And in the morning, we've got, of course, Jeffrey Banson and His Eminence Brian Terrence Cardinal Fitzgerald. He will be on. They'll be covering Long Island, New Jersey, and Hudson Valley. Addison Green returns from an interesting adventure that we don't quite know what it is, but we'll find out.
Well,
and he'll be back tomorrow with Brittany Borer on for the midday hours.
If you go to his Facebook page, this is quite interesting. He was in Philadelphia yesterday, and he stood in front of the Rocky statue. I thought they just, I don't know, I thought they farmed that out or put it in a warehouse. Apparently they have it on display somewhere in Philadelphia, and here's the statue, and here's Addison going like this, just like mimicking Rocky.
Philadelphia is a nice city. I was there back in beginning of October, because I did this whole route down Washington, D.C. to Richmond. We did this whole historical thing. So we went to Washington, D.C. to Richmond, Appomattox, and then made our way up toward Gettysburg, which was amazing. A lot of people say, well, I went to Gettysburg when I was a kid in school. You have to go there when you're an adult. You can't possibly appreciate it as a kid. Right. It was just an awesome emotional experience to be there. To Gettysburg, then from Gettysburg we made it. We went back to Philadelphia and finished off there. It was great. It really was. I recommend, at least as a grown up, you gotta do that. Go to Gettysburg. There's nothing like the experience at Gettysburg historically. Just my recommendation.
I've been to Philadelphia just once, so I can't really.
Oh, I've been there multiple times.
I'll on your recommendation maybe next summer.
Yeah, nice city, Philadelphia. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. It's large enough that it's a city, but small enough where you can kind of get around it. It's right. It's relatively easy to get around. They got a subway. They got an L. All those. For those of you who've never been
to Philadelphia and you look on a map, it's Schuylkill, not the Schuylkill Express. It's a Schuylkill Express. That's how you.
Is that how you say it? The Schuylkill and not Schuylkill?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
As opposed to Schuylerville in upstate New York.
Correct.
Or the opening day race at Saratoga.
I tell you why I know that, because I used to do the weather. I did the weather on Philadelphia, 2 radio stations, WWDB, but initially WFIL, which is a legendary station at 56 on the AM dial. First time I ever did a weathercast, I thought I'd be, smart or whatever like that, and I threw in what I thought was a funny thing. I said on the Schuylkill Expressway. They called me up like a minute after I was off air. They said, Joe, he said, it's not Schuylkill, it's Schuylkill. I said, excuse me? Schuylkill. And
there you have it.
And there you go.
All right, let me just real quick, everybody. It's on the descriptor to this live stream. If you've got an Android device, you can download my app on Google Play, and hopefully sometime really soon, we'll have the iPhone version out as well, so you can not only get my latest rumblings about weather, but you could also watch the Joe and Joe show on the app. So as soon as the iPhone version comes out, we'll let you know, and that's absolutely free, by the way. All right, folks, we got the top of the hour. We got stuff to do. Have a great evening. We'll see him tomorrow.
We'll see him tomorrow. We'll be here.
See you tomorrow.